The kitchen was dimly lit, shadows dancing as Mercy scrubbed the same plate over and over. Her fingers trembled under the water's chill, her mind a storm of conflicting thoughts. Ethan's voice broke the silence, soft yet commanding. "Mom, are you coming to bed?" Her heart clenched. She turned to glance at the doorway, where his silhouette lingered. His voice was calm, but there was an undercurrent of something that both comforted and unnerved her. Mercy dried the plate with shaky hands and walked into the living room. Ethan lay sprawled on the couch, his dark eyes fixed on her with a quiet intensity. He gestured for her to sit, and as she did, he leaned into her, resting his head on her lap. "Don't leave me," he murmured, his voice tender yet heavy with need. Mercy's fingers found his hair, stroking it almost instinctively. Her touch was maternal, yet the air between them was thick, suffocating. She knew this closeness wasn't right, but pulling away felt impossible. "I won't," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Years earlier, the day Mercy gave birth to Ethan, her joy knew no bounds. Finally, after 8 years of barrenness, God had answered her prayers. Her mother-in-law, Mama, would no longer have the mouth to mock her or call her all sorts of names. To Daniel, Ethan was a miracle, the long-awaited blessing that would shame all her enemies. He was everything she had ever wanted and more. Mercy vowed to do everything humanly possible to make Ethan happy because he was her first fruit and the miracle that had changed her life. The day Daniel and Mercy returned from the hospital after her delivery, she summoned all her strength and faith, ready to embrace the future with Ethan by her side. After 9 years, Daniel had left, the weight of his absence crushing her. Mercy had stood at the crossroads of despair. Ethan, then 9, had been her solace, a pale, fragile boy who clung to her after every nightmare. One night, he padded into her room, his small hands clutching a worn blanket. "Can I sleep with you?" he asked, his voice trembling. Mercy hesitated, glancing at the empty space beside her. The bed felt too big, too cold. "Of course, baby," she said, pulling him under the covers. What began as innocent comfort soon evolved into dependency. Ethan sought her presence constantly, and Mercy, drowning in loneliness, let him. Their bond deepened, becoming a lifeline for them both. Mercy vividly remembered the times Ethan would wake screaming from nightmares. He would bolt into her room, tears streaming down his face, his small body trembling. She would scoop him into her arms, whispering soothing words, cradling him as if her love alone could shield him from the world's cruelty. "It's okay, sweetheart," she would murmur, her heart breaking at his vulnerability. "Mommy's here." Her protectiveness over Ethan became all-consuming. She shielded him from bullies at school, defended him fiercely to teachers who misunderstood his quiet demeanor. When he fell sick, she sat by his bedside for hours, stroking his hair, willing him to get better. The world was a harsh place, but Mercy vowed Ethan would never feel its sting. By the time Ethan was 14, he had grown tall and lanky, his gaze sharp and penetrating. One morning, Mercy was in the bathroom when he walked in without knocking. "Ethan," she gasped, clutching a towel to her chest. He perched on the edge of the tub, his movements casual yet deliberate. "I just wanted to talk," he said, his tone light, but his eyes lingering on her a moment too long. Mercy turned away, her heart pounding. "You can't just walk in like this. You're my mom," he said with a faint smile. "It's not a big deal." She said nothing, but the encounter left her shaken. Ethan had begun testing boundaries, his affection laced with something more. And Mercy, burdened by guilt, never pushed back. Ethan's 16th birthday was quiet, just the two of them at the kitchen table. Mercy had baked his favorite cake, and they shared slices late into the night. As she reached for his plate to clear it, his hand covered hers. "Leave it," he said softly. Their eyes met, and for a fleeting moment, the world seemed to pause. Mercy's breath hitched, and she pulled her hand away, feigning a smile. "You're growing up too fast," she said, attempting to steer the conversation back to safer ground. Ethan's gaze lingered on her. "Not fast enough," he murmured. Ethan began seeking Mercy's company in ways that made her chest tighten with unease. One evening, while she folded laundry in her room, Ethan entered, his steps slow and purposeful. He sat on the edge of the bed, watching her. "You look tired," he said, his voice laced with concern. "Let me help." Before she could respond, he reached for her hand, his touch lingering. Mercy's pulse quickened as she pulled away under the guise of retrieving another shirt. "I'm fine, Ethan," she said, forcing a light laugh. "You should get some rest." He stood, closing the space between them. "I just want to take care of you," he murmured, his voice soft but charged with emotion. Mercy stepped back, her heart pounding. "You do, sweetheart," she said, her voice wavering. "You always have." By 18, Ethan's presence in Mercy's life had become all-encompassing. One evening, she decided to leave the house for some air, her thoughts a whirlwind of confusion. But Ethan intercepted her at the door. "Where are you going?" he asked, his tone calm yet unyielding. "Just for a walk," she said, avoiding his gaze. "You don't need to go anywhere," he said, stepping closer. His hand brushed her shoulder, lingering. "Stay here, with me." Mercy froze, the intimacy of his touch sending a shiver down her spine. She nodded slowly, retreating back inside. Later that night, Ethan knocked on her bedroom door. When she didn't respond, he entered anyway, sitting at the edge of her bed. "Mom," he said softly, his voice trembling. "Why do you keep pulling away from me?" Mercy sat up, her heart heavy. "Ethan, I love you, but we can't. This isn't healthy." He reached for her hand, holding it tightly. "I don't care about what's healthy. I just need you." Tears welled in her eyes, and she gently pulled her hand away. "You'll always have me, Ethan, but we need boundaries." Claire entered their lives unexpectedly. She was Mercy's co-worker, a vivacious and warm woman who carried an air of confidence that Mercy envied. At first, Claire was merely a friend, offering Mercy much-needed support during her difficult times. Ethan noticed Claire's presence and grew wary. He observed the way his mother laughed around her, how her mood lightened in Claire's company. "Who's Claire?" Ethan asked one evening, his tone sharp. "She's a friend," Mercy replied cautiously. "She's been helping me with work." Ethan's jaw tightened. "You don't need her. You have me." Mercy hesitated. "Ethan, it's okay to have friends. You'll like her if you give her a chance." When Claire came over for dinner, Ethan was distant, his demeanor cold. But Claire, perceptive as ever, saw through his hostility. She made an effort to engage him, her kindness unwavering. Over time, Claire became a stabilizing force, offering Mercy a perspective she desperately needed. She encouraged Mercy to seek help, to take steps toward reclaiming her life. Mercy met with Daniel in secret, her desperation spilling out in halting words. "He's not a child anymore," she said, her voice trembling, "and I don't know how to separate us." Daniel's expression was a mix of pity and resolve. "You have to leave, Mercy, for his sake and yours." That night, Ethan confronted her. "You lied to me," he said, his voice shaking with fury. "You were going to leave me." "I can't do this anymore," she said, her voice breaking. "This isn't love, Ethan. It's not healthy." Ethan's desperation turned to anger. "You said it was just us," he said. "You promised." Ethan's obsession boiled over, his gaze locking onto his mother with an intensity that sent chills through her. His hand shot out, grabbing Mercy's wrist with force. "Ethan," she cried, pain flashing across her face. "You're hurting me, please let go." But his grip only tightened. His voice was low, trembling, yet full of desperation. "You don't understand. I can't let you go. I need you." Mercy's heart raced as fear mingled with heartbreak. "Ethan, I'm your mother," she pleaded, tears pooling in her eyes. But Ethan wasn't listening. His emotions had taken complete control. He pulled her closer, his movements rough, his strength overwhelming. With one hand, he tore at her blouse, his actions fueled by a chaotic mix of love and obsession. Mercy struggled against him, her voice breaking as she screamed, "Stop this. Ethan, this isn't right." The room felt suffocating, the air heavy with tension. In a moment of sheer desperation, Mercy managed to push him away with all her strength. Ethan stumbled, his head slamming against the wall with a loud thud. He crumpled to the floor, unconscious. Mercy fell to her knees, trembling, her torn clothes clutched to her chest. Sobs racked her body as the weight of what had just happened crushed her spirit. She stayed there, crying until the first rays of dawn crept into the room. When Ethan stirred hours later, his eyes were filled with shame and confusion. He crawled toward his mother, his voice barely a whisper. "Mom, I don't know what came over me. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me." Mercy's tears returned as she looked at her son, the boy she had raised, now a man consumed by something dark and uncontrollable. She hesitated, then pulled him into an embrace. "I forgive you," she said softly, though her voice carried the weight of her heartbreak. "But Ethan, this can't happen again." That morning, Mercy made a decision. Her love for Ethan was boundless, but she could no longer allow it to blind her. For their survival, for their sanity, she had to seek help. Mercy arranged for Ethan to enter a residential program. On the day she dropped him off, he clung to her, sobbing. "Don't make me go," he pleaded. "I'll change. I'll be better." Mercy held him tightly, her own tears falling freely. "I love you, Ethan, but we both need help. This isn't goodbye. It's a new beginning." Claire was there to support Mercy, her presence a steadying hand on her shoulder. As Ethan walked into the facility, Mercy watched from the car, her heart breaking, but her resolve firm. Months passed. Mercy began therapy, unraveling the tangled threads of guilt and love that had bound her to Ethan. She rediscovered herself, her passions, her independence. Ethan, too, began to heal. Letters exchanged between them spoke of progress, of understanding the boundaries they'd once ignored. Claire remained a steadfast friend, encouraging Mercy to embrace her newfound freedom. One day, Mercy received a letter from Ethan. "Thank you for loving me enough to let me go," it read. Tears filled her eyes as she folded the letter. Love, when twisted, could become a cage, but now it was becoming a bridge, a path toward freedom and healing for them both. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this tale and want to hear more stories filled with love, adventure, and unforgettable moments, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring these enchanting folk tales to life. And if you have a favorite story you'd love to hear, drop a comment below. We'd love to bring it to you. Until next time, may the magic of love always find its way to you.